with the Broncos losing on Thursday night, the Bengals, Colts, and Dolphins all winning, they're all officially alive. The ranked choice here, though, because they all have to win out to get in, and they have to have the Broncos lose out, which looks very viable at this point. Broncos have, going forward, they have the Chiefs in Week 18.
Yep.
And they have the, I'm blanking on Week 17 here. Week 17, they have.
Is it the Steelers? No.
Is it?
It might be.
No, who do they have in Week 17?
I remembered it earlier. I know it's the Chiefs the last week, and they have somebody else they have the Bengals.
That's right. I'm dumb. They play the Bengals.
That's what it is. I remember I was like, they play somebody that's fighting for the playoff life. It's the Bengals.
So the Bengals, and obviously the Bengals need that one to stay alive, and then the Chiefs in Week 18. But it goes if the Colts went out and the Dolphins went out and the Bengals went out, it goes Colts get it. If just the Colts and Dolphins went out, again, the Colts get it, and then it's the Dolphins, and then it's the Bengals. If all three of those teams went out, if the Colts lose a game and the Dolphins and Bengals went out, the Dolphins get it. So the Bengals need a lot of help to get in at this point. But Joe Burrow has gone 7 straight games now with 250 yards and 3 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
Is there any way, any of these teams makes it into the playoff conversation?
Well, it's interesting. I'm liking the Colts because I think the Broncos may. Now, the only thing is, right, I thought the scenario was if the Bengals went out and the Broncos lose out, the Bengals win. But they're third in that pecking order because
they are
all three, because the Colts and the Dolphins won today, right?
Yes. I just didn't.
And the Colts have a cakewalk of a schedule down the stretch.
Colts now do. Pats, Raiders. That ain't.
Hey, the pesky Pats might give them an issue.
Or excuse me. No, I meant that's who has. They have the Giants, Jaguars.
I'll say it's Giants. I was going to say, I think it's easier than that. Giants, yeah. They're not losing either one of those games. The Colts actually might get into the play because when you look at the Broncos, right, if you're the Chiefs, yes, Week 18, and say the Chiefs go on to beat the Steelers this week, right? So they're already locked into the 1 seed. We've seen Andy Reid rest some guys. Patrick Mahomes has the high ankle, which didn't look like it affected him at all. But do you want a divisional foe getting in the playoffs if you're the Chiefs, right? Do you go out there and try to knock them out just to make sure that they don't get into the playoffs? And because you'd rather face the Colts instead of the Broncos, because the Broncos almost beat them earlier this year. And I'm not mistaken, I think that game's actually in Denver. That's the only thing. It's not at Arrowhead because earlier this year was at Arrowhead. Yep. So if I'm the Chiefs, I wonder what Andy Reid does that week, because if you're already locked into the number 1 seed, you're going to have an extra week of rest. Do you still play Patrick Mahomes and them a little bit just because you don't want 2 full weeks off, right? You maybe give Chris Jones, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce a quarter in that game, knowing that they're going to sit the whole next week on a bye week? Or do you just give them the whole week off because you guys have been here before and they know how to rev it back up to get ready? Is the rest more important, having 2 weeks of rest, rather than knocking the Broncos out of the playoffs?
I think the rest is more important. I think it is, especially for a Chiefs team that knows how to practice, right? They've been there, they know how to practice. I don't want, and they're old. You're not a young team at this point anymore. You're vet laden. So that's my take. I don't know what you would think of that.
So that's the thing. It's usually if you're in a division with somebody, those are your hardest games. So you kind of don't want them in the playoffs because they know how to play you. Rightfully so. The Broncos were a blocked field goal away from beating the Chiefs at Arrowhead earlier this year, right? So it's just all right, if we don't, play Patrick Mahomes, do we believe in Carson Wentz enough to beat the Broncos? Who knows? I think, like you said, I think they'll take a precedent over resting regardless, just because, they are older. Chris Jones is getting up there. Travis Kelce is getting up there. Patrick Mahomes is dinged up, right? So you maybe want the 2 weeks of rest. And you just say we roll our dice, and if we have to see Denver in the second round of the division, we'll be ready, right? Mm-hmm. But that would be interesting, too. Who would have thought in the beginning of the year potentially 3 AFC West teams would get into the playoffs?
Yeah. I mean, I thought Chargers, right? I was like, those two.
And they were on the cusp.
It's such an easy road of it this year.
Yeah.
But I in no way thought the Broncos were bouncing back year 1 of Bo Nix. Just in no chance. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. All right, point 5. Let's get to the AFC North, because we had a big game Saturday night. Obviously, the Ravens won going away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Final score of 34-17. No George Pickens out there, though, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not sure that was making the difference, given how that game went down. When you give up 34, hard to say that George Pickens would have made up that one. Do we think this Ravens team, now they're still technically behind in the North, do we think they end up taking it when it's all said and done?
I think they win the division. I actually were asking our research team, because I wondered that after the Ravens beat them, would that jump them into the division lead? But no, the Steelers still have the divisional lead because of light conference games. The Ravens have to be kicking themselves because of the game that they lost that is determining the determining factor right now is that Raiders game earlier in the year versus Gardner Minshew. That right now is a determining factor in why the Ravens aren't on top of the division right now. They have the same record as the Steelers. Just imagine if Gardner Minshew comes back to bite you, right? Like, crazy to think about. I mean, the Steelers still have a gauntlet of a schedule going down the stretch. I think they have the Chiefs and maybe the Bengals.
Both at home, though. Both in Pittsburgh.
So, yeah, they have a gauntlet of a schedule. But if they win out, they win the division. So, like, I ultimately believe they will lose one of those, whether it's the Chiefs, whether it's the Bengals. I think the Ravens are just getting hot at the right time. And we actually had this conversation on the desk today. And my good guy, Pete Prisco, was trying to downplay Lamar's performance as if he didn't have 3 touchdown passes. And he was like, he only threw for 200-something yards. How many yards did Josh Allen throw for today? I think it was 145 or 150.
It was bad. And
a lot of
that
came
one
at the
throw.
end.
We're not going to talk about them because obviously they play the Pats. But what was that one throw to Dalton Kincaid?
Bro,
did you see that one? Where it just like came out of his hand like an absolute duck? I don't think I've seen
I think that was the cold weather. But he had a couple throws. Like, so the one, and shout out to our social media team for CBS Sports. They put out there, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, the interception that he was trying to throw to Keon Coleman on the jump ball that landed short and got picked off at the one. Mapu, you got to stay in the end zone there. You can't bring that ball out of the end zone. Like, what are you doing?
That's like a good punt. That was a perfect punt.
So that's what they said.
Good play.
They said Josh Allen with a one-armed punt right here. That's what they called it on the Twitter on X. They said Josh Allen with the best one-arm punt right here. But he had another throw too, where he was trying to force it to Dalton Kincaid on a crossing route, and Mapu almost picked that off too.
Yeah.
So again, when you've played at the level he's played at, you're bound to have one or two stinkers. But this is why I said the MVP race wasn't over, because one, I said there's not a lot of gravitas to who Josh Allen is playing down the stretch. Well, Lamar Jackson is playing on a national stage on a standalone game, right? He had a really good performance, versus Steelers. Now he gets a standalone game on Christmas versus the Houston Texans, another playoff team.
Yeah.
And then he had 3 touchdowns. Now that interception, going back and watching it, this is where the quarterback and receiver have to be on the same page. Because to me, I saw what Rashad Bateman saw. He saw the zone corner sit cloud coverage. So he was like, I need to spot up in zone. But a lot of people from Lamar's point of view said, there's green grass there, you got to run. But to me, that wasn't traditional man coverage. Micah Fitzpatrick just triggered downhill. I believe he was the robber right there. So to me, I think Bateman did the right thing. But Lamar was pressured, so he saw green grass. So he's like, I'm expecting him to continue to run. That was just an unfortunate play. Other than that, Lamar Jackson was flawless in that game versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? From the pocket, I mean, those throws to Zay Flowers on those crossers, and then on third down to close the game on a slot fade, 3rd and 3, we're not throwing short of the sticks. We're throwing downtown. Like, the confidence you have to have as a quarterback to make a slot fade throw on 3rd and 3. Lamar's just playing out of his mind from within the pocket. So I don't think this MVP race is over by any means necessary.
He just got outplayed by Drake May. And then that was kind of, I don't want to say a torch passing, but it was like a Drake May arrival in that they're similarly tooled, man. I mean, when you watch that game, they play a similar brand of football with May's ability to maneuver pockets, create for himself. I mean, he played a heck of a game against the Buffalo Bills.
Bad turnovers at the end, though.
The ugly pick and then the stupid backwards pass.
The lateral pass.
I have been railing against backwards lateral passes forever. The EPA on lateral passes, we used to track them at PFF, was horrendous. It was about as bad a play. I mean, because of one, that risk that if the guy drops it, which is not uncommon in the NFL.
Very common.
If you're banking on a drop being the difference between a positive play and a fumble, like a true disaster of a play. A fumble in the flat can go back to the house, and obviously that one did. Fumble in the flat's terrible. So if you're just a drop away, that's not a place you want to be. But also, it's a backwards pass. You literally have 6 yards to go.
Correct.
To get to the line of scrimmage at that point. You're not putting yourself in a favorable spot. They are every single offense coordinator, NFL, college, high school. If you have your quarterback throwing backwards, burn that in your playbook. It should never be a possibility. It's not worth it. It's just
the risk reward, especially backed up too. That's another thing. They were backed up. So like only something bad can happen. And Ramondre Stevenson is a really good player, but he's had issues with drops and fumbles. Like that's been his MO since coming into the league. And right there, bit him again, drop pass, ends up going the other way for a touchdown and essentially ends the game for him.